This was a highly requested topic. If you haven't seen my previous video, I was making the argument that there is a highly immature version of bratting, which is testing the dominant not out of play, but out of a fear of abandonment if the dominant actually became aware of all the needs of the submissive. So what was requested were examples of how this becomes abusive to the dominant. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to enable anyone to look at those references and say, oh, well, I don't do that, so I must be in the clear. And I don't want to be accountable for that. However, we will discuss the underlying principle here, which is consent. In order to have this conversation, we're going to have to define some terms here. And the kink community loves to say that kink is whatever you want it to be, but it's only valid insofar as the consenting partners are affixed to a common definition of whatever those activities are. And that's vitally important when things get dangerous. And here, bratting, and I don't care if you disagree because you're wrong, but bratting is an authoritarian and disciplinarian kink by the submissive, okay? If the submissive is not bratting for the purposes of soliciting authority and discipline out of their dom, then that's your first clue that it may be toxic. Now, if you go, that's not why I do it, I just enjoy being sassy. Well, I don't know you, but from the outside looking in, I would say that sounds like denial. And let's consider that denial is the first step of grief. And what we're talking about here is grieving a lost childhood where those childhood needs were not met. When entering into a brat tamer dynamic, and I'm not talking about brat holders, you guys can have your own ballpark completely. Did the brat specifically state, I'm going to act defiant, sarcastic, and sassy in order to see how much stress you can take to cope with the fact that my needs were not met as a child? And did the brat tamer consent to that? If not, then this dynamic was developed under false pretenses. Now, I want to give grace to ignorance. If the brat did not know that that's the reason they were doing it, then it's completely reasonable. But once you do become aware, then it is an obligation of the bratting party to disclose the true nature of their intent. Otherwise, the brat tamer has no opportunity to actually consent to that dynamic. And this isn't just about brats, but there's a dom equivalent where a narcissist is posing as a soft dom, and they're like, hey, I'm gonna be gentle, and I'm gonna be caring, and I'm gonna love bomb you to death, and then I'm gonna pull away and call that discipline and rule bearing. So let's consider when that partnership came to the table, did that dom actually sit down and say, hey, so I was raised by narcissists and it taught me a worldview that this is how relationships and boundaries are set. So I'm actually going to be a narcissist to you and I'm going to call it being a soft dominant. And did that sub sign off on that dynamic? So again, this is about a value system, consent being one of those values. And values are exceptionally important when they are convenient, but they are even more important when they are inconvenient. So even in these like small matters where they affect like a tiny, small little nuanced difference, if we're not going to pay attention to those, then I don't get to claim that consent is all that important to me. It's either important all the time or it's important none of the time. Completely binary, completely black and white. That's what makes it a value.